You're listening to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, aimed at helping photographers learn how to make the leap from amateur to pro. Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, a joint effort brought to you by Photofocus and Skip Cohen University. This is Shamira Young, and I'm joined by my awesome and amazing co-host, Skip Cohen. Skip.
Wow.
How are you?
Awesome and amazing.
And amazing, both of those.
Double A. Double A. Well, yes. Thank you very much. I'll do my best to live up to that today. We certainly have a guest that is going to make this podcast awesome and amazing.
Yes.
So, and I should warn everybody and you, Shamira, that you may have a little trouble keeping us under control today.
Oh boy, it's a party.
We've got one of my best buddies joining us. Glen Clark is in the Mind Your Own Business house, and he and I have been hanging out together for at least 25 years. We go back to so many different projects over the years, including first meeting at Kodak in the early 90s to help them with issues surrounding the first print copy station and a whole series of, I don't want to call it silly, but overreactions on the part of the industry, thinking that Kodak wasn't following issues related to copyright. And the rumor mill grew, and Glenn and Andy Foster, who was then a PPA, and I were all called in to help. So if you look at Glenn's background, I mean, he's a photographer. He's got an in-depth knowledge of the lab and printing business. And in fact, he was a key back in his Marathon Press days to the first book that I ever co-authored with Don Blair, who, if you don't know Don, go Google him because he was one of the greatest portrait photographers our industry has ever seen. He's also got an incredible depth in working with photographers regarding sponsorship of various programs. And that's going to be a big part of our focus today. So many of you think you deserve corporate sponsorship because you use a specific company's products. Well, it really goes a lot deeper. And it's much deeper than just using somebody's products or services. And we're going to talk about the importance of your brand, things you can do to be recognized, networking, and your goal of chasing the sponsorship rainbow, because it's not easy, especially today. And there's some very specific things that you've got to do. So on that note, Glenn, this is going to be the tip, the cue for your lips to move. Welcome to Mind Your Own Business.
Well, thank you very much, Skip. Thank you, Jamira. I really appreciate being asked to be part of this today.
Oh, this is a fun one.
We are so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. This is great.
And before we dive into the sponsorship rainbow, Skip, I love how you put that, by the way. Glenn, give us a bit more information. Fill in some of the holes as far as your background and how you got started and how you ended up doing what you're doing today.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, if we can take a bit of a trip in the Wayback Machine, I fell in love with photography in high school. Now, I know that's a long time ago, but when I got my first Polaroid camera and realized I could do double exposures and be creative, I fell in love. And it's been a lifelong love affair with the camera, and it progressed from there. Now, I happened to be in high school and graduated during the height of the Vietnam War, which was a challenge for many of us. I did go to college right after I graduated from high school. And while I was at college for my first year, well, I should preface this all by saying in the summer between high school and college, they did what's known as the draft. At least it was known as the draft back then. And unlike the NFL or the NBA, this is not a good draft. This is a draft where you are selected for service in the armed forces. And at this time, it was an opportunity to travel to Vietnam. And those of you that didn't live through this period of time, it was a very contentious, very maddening upheaval of everything that we had been taught as young people. I mean, we were into recycling and reusing and love and peace and all this kind of thing. And it was a different time. Not that we're not into those things now, but it was a time of challenge. So when I went to college for my first year and realized that my draft number that was selected that summer was 2.
Whoa.
Not 200, not 102. It was 2. So I was pretty well assured of the fact that I would be traveling to Southeast Asia unless I had a valid reason not to. So I decided to study photography. I left the 4-year university I was attending. I returned home to go to De Anza College, which is a 2-year opportunity at the time, but they had a really robust photography program. And I got into studying photography. While I was there and while I was studying, I got employment as a lab worker and a photographer for a wedding photographer that did full service weddings for $99. And we would do literally 20 or 30 weddings a weekend. I myself would photograph 4, 5, 6 of them starting Friday night and going through Sunday evening. And then I would work in the lab during the week and go to school during the days. So I immersed myself in photography. Eventually, I was fortunate enough to connect with Larry Abbott-Ball, the owner of Bay Photo, and he and I had several conversations. And he said, I don't really have a job for you, but I'll bring you on board, but you kind of have to make your own way. And that was the beginning of my wife, Robin, and I packing up, moving back to California, and spending the next 10 years with Bay Photo and the great team in California. And that brings us to today, and here I am.
Wow. You know, that could go on record as the longest background check we've ever done. But just for our listeners, there's so much in there that's relevant to what we want to talk about today, because if you followed what Glenn was saying, all along the way, he was networking and building relationships. And since our topic today is going to be, you know, people that think they deserve sponsorship, maybe we can just have some fun between all three of us and riff back and forth on some of the things that photographers need to do to get that brass ring, to get to being sponsored, because it doesn't happen by accident. You've got to be noticed. You've got to make it a point to build those relationships. So if you were going to say to somebody, if somebody came to you right now, Glenn, and said, all right, I really want to be on the speaking circuit and I want to be sponsored, what do I need to do? What would the first thing be that you told them?
First thing I'd ask them is, are you a customer of the people you're going to contact? If not, go do your homework, get an account, learn what their ordering system is and what they do, and be intelligent before you ask a question. That would be the first thing. Then I would say, remember, the people that are working in these positions in these companies, they don't go to work every day with nothing to do. They don't go to work with a blank schedule. You're an interruption to them. So respect their time and be prepared. And when you contact them, make it very short and sweet and to the point. If you're contacting them by email, make sure that subject line makes sense. Too many times I would get an email that would say, hey, or just touching base from someone I've never met before. Use the subject line of an email to make an introduction and cause them to have some curiosity. I would say, put your words as succinctly as you can, maybe even bullet points, to really cover who, what, where, when, how, and why, and then close. Don't oversell. Give them a reason to want you to be part of what they're doing. If you can, lessen their workload. In other words, do it for them. Offer to do something for them as an example, kind of like getting free hors d'oeuvres at happy hour. You know, do something that has value to them. Yeah.
Good starting place.
Yeah, a wonderful starting place. And I love that you've got experience on the photography side and the business side. One thing that you mentioned, Glenn, is that we need to give them a reason. And I wanted to touch on skill set briefly and see your thoughts about that. Because our work also has to give someone a reason to respond back to us. Say we send that email or make that phone call. What tips do you have skill set wise for photographers who are looking to hopefully pick up a sponsorship?
Well, the basic skills are, first and foremost, being a good photographer. Really being a good photographer. Know your craft. Make sure you're creating images of high quality, on demand, all the time, as much as possible. But the other things that are highly important is the ability to speak, the ability to be open-minded, the ability to address an audience. If you're representing a company, you have to be mindful that your opinion needs to step back a little bit in some cases, because you're representing a company or a group or whatever the case may be. One skill that is lacking is the ability to write. Nowadays, blogs and even emails and posts really rely on the ability to communicate with the written word. Little simple things like spell check and make sure you're using the right vocabulary is a big plus, and it's a big no-no if you're not doing it. So images, presentation, writing, and to a sense, your lifestyle, because you are representing a company. Think about those that have athletes, celebrities, or whoever that represent companies. And when you see a certain name out there, you get an impression. Sometimes companies want the bad boys. Sometimes they want the cutting edge, but sometimes they also want the wholesome or the tried and true. So just know your audience and speak to those skills. Just as an example, if I can mention somebody, and Skip, you'll know this person. I worked with Suzette Allen, and Suzette Allen is amazing because she's an outstanding portrait photographer. She represents a camera company. She can blog, she can write, she does video. She's a wonderful person that everybody loves. And you look at somebody like that and you go, check, 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 check. Wow, this is somebody I want on my team. Those are the kind of things to look at. What's the overall package?
And Suzette is a perfect example. Yeah. All right. I'm going to jump in with one. And this is a question that I used to get from senior management at Kodak every time I went in representing Hasselblad and was looking for support for, it might have been a Hasselblad University program we were going to do, or we had something that we wanted to give away. A number of times over the years, we gave away a brick of film with the purchase of a particular camera or lens. The question was always the same. All right, so how is this going to help me sell more product? And one of the things that ties back into something you mentioned in the beginning, Glenn, of get to know the company who you're seeking sponsorship from. Nobody's interested in any more mercenaries. Hired guns are a dime a dozen. Anybody, any manufacturer, especially today, right now, when the pandemic has made things a little bit tough, anybody can find anybody to represent their product. But it does go back to that truth in advertising. You want somebody that really uses it, that really understands it, that really knows it. So thinking about what it is you want to present, having the skills to present on behalf of a manufacturer or vendor, and then to take it a step further and say, all right, this is how I can help you sell more product. And it isn't always in the application. It might not be that you're doing something that's totally unique. It could be that you've got a particular skill set that is totally unique, or you're doing something very different that nobody's ever done before, but it's making yourself separating yourself from the masses. And the other one, which Glenn, I'd love you to jump in on, is some of the art of networking. I mean, you talked about it in a good part of those early years for you. You were out building relationships and meeting people and going to conferences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's all about networking. As a matter of fact, if I can offer one thing to my list of what would you do up front for sponsorship, is if you know somebody that's already connected with that company, get them to introduce you. It is so much more powerful. And I'll give you an example. Recently, Skip, you sent Kevin to me, and Kevin from Los Angeles. What's Kevin's last name?
Oh, come on. I can't believe that I can't think of.
I know, me too. Sorry, Kevin.
Oh
Anyway,
my God. I've got a portrait he did of me right here on my wall. Kevin Gilligan.
Gilligan, great. How can we forget that? Kevin, I apologize. Anyway, you sent an email to me introducing me to Kevin, and you sent an email and you copied both of us on it. And you said, Kevin's a wonderful guy, and you gave me a few insights from your perspective, and then you just let us go at it. In my mind, that skipped over about the first 5 or 10 things we would have had to do to understand who each other was. So if you have relationships with people that are connected, use those in a friendly way, not in a corporate way, and keep the pressure minimal. So those things would really help as far as relationships go. But the relationships, Tony Corbell told me once that your real value in this industry is your Rolodex. Now, okay, that was a few years ago, and some people may not know what a Rolodex is, but it's your contact list. And as long as you keep in touch with the people on your contact list, people that used to be my competitors, I have since worked with. People that used to be on the other side of the table, I'm now on the same side of the table with. This is an industry where if you're in it for a career, if you're in it for your life, those people are going to come and go, but the good ones and the relationships stay. I still have many, many, many relationships for people that are retired or moved on or in a different industry. And at this kind of time that we're in right now, those relationships are priceless. So I can't say enough about the relationships and building and the people-to-people connections.
Great advice.
This is outstanding advice. Glenn, I'm curious, what kind of attitude should we have? How do I word this? Say I'm a photographer reaching out to a company for the first time for a sponsorship. Attitude and mindset wise, what should I keep in mind when reaching out to this company? Should I be impatient and expect an answer right away? Do I need to gently keep in touch? What do you recommend, just so that we all keep a healthy perspective, and have the right expectations going into it?
Sure. Well, my watchwords, my immediate response is keep in mind what's in it for them, not what's in it for you, what's in it for them. Before you connect in any way, have some bullet points in your brain that says, this is what I can do for you. I already said, be short and sweet and to the point, and offer something up front for nothing. Prove yourself. Do something. Go online and post something about how you love this product or service. Go do something that you don't even have to ask about, and then do it so well that you can use it as an example, maybe even get noticed. The other part to that answer is one of my pet peeves in receiving information from people is they're always in a hurry. Now, it's brand new to me. It's not on my list of to-dos. It's not on my schedule, and you're in a hurry. So I would say approach when you have time to be patient. Approach when you can ask when would be a good time. Another pet peeve of mine is ASAP is not a date. If you're going to ask for something, be specific. I need it by Friday. I can wait until Tuesday. Don't say ASAP, because every time I got an ASAP or I get an ASAP, in my mind, that's as soon as I get around to it, or as soon as I feel like it, or maybe never. So be specific, be short and to the point, be helpful, and try to take some of their work off of them. I mean, Skip mentioned conferences and conventions, and right now we don't have a lot of those, but there are online opportunities happening. There's still ways you can join chats. There's still ways you can bring things up because you believe in it and you love it, not because they're paying you for it. So be a cheerleader before you're even on the team, so to speak. There's lots of ways that you can do this. Now, for instance, online, we've all seen somebody say something negative about a company or product or a service. Come to their defense. if you've done your homework and you really know what this company does and you have some experience, hopefully you've placed a few orders or you've bought a lens or you've done something. If you see a negative, come back to the positive. Show that you're on the team before you're even on the team, and that'll open doors for you.
Love it.
Great advice. All right, I've got one I want to throw out there, and I just call it baby steps. Everyone wants. I mean, if you want to get on the speaking circuit, that's what you think you want to do, or you're somehow you're looking for sponsorship for your work. Everybody seems to forget that you don't go from nothing and an unknown to being a platform speaker at the next Imaging USA or PPE or WPPI or any other convention for that matter. And one of the ways that photographers who want to get recognized, I mean, this is all about building your brand in the same way you've built your brand in the community as a children's photographer or wedding photographer or commercial shooter. You have to build your brand as a speaker. So start small. Start with speaking at the monthly guild meeting in your town. Start by teaching a class on photography to, all the moms in the neighborhood, because typically women make 98% of the purchase decisions to hire a photographer in the portrait social categories. That's your target audience anyway. So do things to help mom and dad too. Take better pictures. Start if you want to be an educator, if you want to be a presenter, if you've got something that you feel is going to be noteworthy later on, start small so that you build your way up, and then from there get into your state conventions, get into larger conventions, and all along the way you're building your network, and you should be doing things that are building your brand and building recognition. But everybody seems to forget baby steps. And I've sat in on programs where afterwards a photographer came to me and said, I could have done that. Well, yeah, but you didn't. And you haven't paid your dues to get there. It's the same way when somebody looks at a magazine cover. A lot of times they'll say, well, I could have done that shot. Yeah, but you don't realize the photographer that did get the cover built a relationship with the editor and the association or the publisher of the magazine first and started to get their name out there. And you didn't see the stuff that they shared on Facebook or their Instagram pages. And that's one other thing, by the way. You mentioned something, and you mentioned about Glenn people saying something negative and come to that company's defense. Just remember that there are no erasers on the internet. And when you go into one of these chat rooms and you get caught up in a thread, which I'm dating myself now, when you go into any one of these forums on Facebook and you get caught up in a thread where you decide to take on a troll and you're going to show what a total miserable person you can be just to put down that troll, you forget that the whole world's watching at that time, and there are no erasers. So learn to play nice. If it's not your battle, stay out of it. And at the same time, if you're looking to get involved with a manufacturer or vendor, that's where I love your idea of be supportive.
Right, and I've learned that from photographers, because I've learned it's hard to defend yourself when someone is criticizing. When a friend comes to bat for you, it's priceless, because it's not you. And if you're representing a company, people expect you to defend the company. You're in a no-win situation. If you say something, it sounds like you're defending yourself. When a friend comes, and it's two or three working together. Geez, I think there's a Bible verse about that, by the way. You're stronger and you're better, than if you are taking a defensive posture. And one thing I wanted to add, Skip, as you were talking, we're going through tough times, and we've been going through tough times, but there's still opportunities out there. And Skip, I think you've written a couple of things about Zoom calls and online chats. If you're going to go into these calls, be a good photographer, light yourself well, talk in support of whatever the topic is that the group's on. But you can get noticed in small ways, whether it's your local associations when they are meeting, but many associations are meeting on Zoom right now, and there's weekly meetings and there's conversations. It's a great way to meet people in your industry. Now, there's also all kinds of Zoom calls where it may be the community, and maybe you can get on there as the photographer in the community, and more people will get to know you, who you are. Another idea that I love, and I think, Skip, you've written about this too, is the trend to do front porch portraits. Be a photographer. Go out there and take some pictures of people that are sheltering in place. It's still happening. And yet a nice family group on the front porch, maybe mom with her stay-at-home students. Do it for a fee. Do it gratis. Do it so they have something that they can share online and tell them what a wonderful person you are. There are still opportunities out there, no matter what's going on in the world. The term influencer really bugs me. It bugged me back in months ago, and it bugs me today because it's not about how many followers you have. It's about which of those followers can you spur to action. So, I don't care if you have 1 million followers. I care if you have 10 people that will do what you say.
Good point.
Very cool. Yes. And earlier we touched a little bit on networking at conferences, but I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper, Glenn, if you don't mind, because for me, I find one of the most frustrating and thrilling aspects of going to a conference is there's just so much to see and do and people to talk to and so much inspiration. It's like drinking out of a fire hose. And so what tips do you have for effectively working a conference? Say if you want to start that process of building a relationship with a prospective company that you hope to eventually form a sponsorship with?
Great question. And I think any conference, and again, Skip's talked about this before, plan it ahead of time. Get a schedule together of what you want to see and do while you're at the conference. Get a list of who you want to connect. When possible, send out emails or text messages to those people ahead of time. And again, don't just say, when we have a chance, because you won't have a chance during the convention. Say, let's meet for breakfast on Tuesday at 8 a.m. Say, let's have dinner with these 2 other great photographers that I've already asked and they're coming. Have a specific plan. Leave some room in that plan for improvisation. And look at the schedule. If you're looking for sponsorship, go to the programs that sponsor is sponsoring and see how those speakers are representing the company. If the company is offering a happy hour or a get-together, go. Introduce yourself. Be part of it. Have conversations. Get to know the people as opposed to just the company, because that's really what the company's all about. So go to the conference and work the conference. Don't look at it like vacation. Don't look at it. I remember early on in my career, I went to a conference in Orlando, and I literally walked in the door and said, okay, I can write this off, and I went to Disneyland. That's not how you do. This is an opportunity. As I've said so many times, the entire industry is in one place for 3 days. Go get all the value out of it you can. And for those that want to think of it as a big party, that's great. And you're going to meet some people if it's a big party, but you're going to meet more people if you work it. And I don't mean work it being so serious all the time. I mean, make friends, have conversations, find out things. In the old days in sales training, they used to say, know your customer, know their birthday, know their anniversary, know the names of their children. I mean, those aren't new concepts at all, but get to know the people and everything else will be a lot easier.
One of the things to remind everybody that when you're chasing the sponsorship rainbow and you're working on networking and building relationships, when somebody has given you some time, it could be a long phone call. It could be somebody you've actually met at a convention. Once conventions come back as being a way of life again, which we all will be ecstatic. I mean, I can't believe what the first convention after close to a year of being hunkered down is going to be like. My point is, take the time and thank that person. send them a note. One of the things that I always enjoyed when I was at Hasselblad, I don't have time to sit there and look at somebody's portfolio when I'm knee deep in photographers at a trade show. But I do have time to look at somebody's work after the fact. And that's where I always liked the fact that photographers would give me, an oversized postcard, for example, showing some of their work. Or after I had talked with somebody to show, every now and then I'd get a note saying, "Hey, Skip, I just want to thank you for your time. I'd love to be able to work with you guys, and I know I can bring some good things to Hasselblad. And here's where I am if you ever need any help." Somebody who took the time to get back to me that way, they always stayed in my memory. It's so easy to do, and it's just a matter of treating people the same way you want to be treated. It's that do unto others thing that we all learned in kindergarten and first grade. Treat people fairly. Remember, you've talked to a manager, even if they only gave you 10, 15 minutes and you got an introduction, follow it up with just something soft sell. You don't need to pitch them. Just soft sell, saying, "Thanks for your time. It was great to meet you. Looking forward to talking more, and you know where I am if I can ever help." That's all you need to do. Or it's as simple as an email after a phone call saying, "I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know how busy you are, but here's my contact information if anything opens up in the future." Low key, soft sell. Makes sense?
Perfect sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this has been such an amazing interview. Glen, I'll close it off with our favorite final question. What advice do you have for photographers who would like to eventually be sponsored by a company? What should they be doing right now if they're just getting started as a photographer? Feel free to speak to any of the skill set categories that we talked about, but what should they be focusing on as a very first step?
The first thing they should do is, like I said before, do their homework and learn about the companies they want to be connected with. Second thing they can do, we're in a world of online, and we're in a world of connections online, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. Follow those companies that you want to be a part of. Oftentimes there's contests. Oftentimes they're asking for reactions. I used to, when we did online contests, we used to ask the question, "Tell us how winning this prize would help your business or help you." And we always waited for somebody to say, "It would help me promote you because I'm going to use your services." And they never did. On occasion, someone said, for instance, we're giving away a ticket to a workshop. "I can go and learn more and sell more, and that way I can send more orders to you." I'm like, okay, there's a winner right there. So do your homework. That would be my biggest. But the other would be just old school. This time is teaching us. Put some money in savings. If you're starting tomorrow, I don't care if it's 10%, 5%, or whatever, put some money aside because your golden years are going to come faster than you think, and you need to be ready. These times have taught us your business could be challenged for a long period of time, so make a profit. And the one final thought I'd like to leave everybody with is, if you're going to do this as a profession, if you're really going to be in business, what's the one thing you owe to your clients more than anything else? And the common response is quality, service, on-time delivery. Those things are all important. But if you thought about your own personal doctor, your own personal accountant, those professionals that are very important to you, what do you expect from them more than anything else? You expect them to be in business tomorrow. You owe it to your clients to make a profit. Don't set your pricing by the guy down the street. Don't set your pricing by what it costs you to create it. Set your pricing by what it will take for you to stay in business, for you to have children, for you to pay a mortgage, for you to send your kids to college, and for you to have savings so that you can continue to be in business and service those people that have come to rely on you. That doesn't have a lot to do with sponsorship. It just has a lot to do with good business management.
That is
and
perfect.
it's great advice.
Yes. Yes. Very cool. Very cool. Glenn, this has been amazing. And we do want to make sure and ask, where can folks find you online if they want to get in touch?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I'm all over the place on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Glen, Glena, middle initial A, Clark, Glen A. Clark. That's my handle. And you can, if anyone wants to email me, it's very simple. It's glenaclark@aol.com. Yes, I know. It's still old school, but that's me.
Hey, it still counts. It absolutely counts. And Skip, what about you? Where can folks find you online?
It's always the same answer. Everything I write is at skipcohenuniversity.com and on Twitter and Facebook. Nothing creative here. It's just my name, Skip Cohen, on both of them. And my email is skip@mei500.com. We're always looking for feedback. If you've got ideas, if you've got suggestions on somebody we ought to have on the show, give us a shout, or a topic you'd like to have us investigate and present. And I also happen to have Glenn's home address, so if you want to swing by on a weekend for a steak on his barbecue, just let me know. I'm happy to give that out. And Shamero, where are they going to go to find you?
I'm sure Glenn appreciates that, right? Folks can find me at. They can send.
Yeah, come on over.
Oh, I love it. They can send me an email at shamira@photofocus.com. That's my first name, CHAMIRA @photofocus.com. We love getting questions, ideas, and feedback from our listeners because it shapes how we move forward with the show. And as crazy as 2020 has been, we are all in this together to help our businesses be better than ever. We want to thank you again, Glenn. This has been outstanding. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking, and thanks for letting me ramble on.
Great stuff.
Absolutely. And we want to thank our listeners for joining us as well. Please tell your friends about this podcast, especially if they have the desire to improve their photography business in 2020 and beyond. We look forward to having you with us next time on the Mind Your Own Business podcast, brought to you by Photofocus and Skip Cohen University.